Morning, YouTubers. So I got a little bit different of a video for you guys today. Now, obviously, you know me as making mistakes with Greg, as in I make a lot of mistakes. And obviously, most of the videos, probably 99% of them, have all been welding videos that you might think that I'm only going to share welding content, but no, have no fear. That's not all that I'm into. So the main reason I started this channel was to share skills with people. Not just welding, but skills in general. And I have talked about that in the past. But I also want to hopefully inspire some of you guys out there to pick up tools and build stuff and believe in yourself. So today, kind of in fit with that theory of inspiring you guys, I thought I would share a little bit of my thoughts on not giving up, putting in effort, and why it matters. So let's get into that. So I know a lot of you guys out there are probably pretty easily discouraged. I know that I've seen it in college classes that I've taken and with friends and family and just, people I've seen just on, out experiencing life. And it's one of those things where you see someone start something like, say, welding, and they give it, a couple hours, and then they're like, oh man, I suck, and I'm never going to be that good, etc., and they give up. I'm telling you that a certain personality trait some people have, such as myself, is that when I don't get something or I'm not good at anything, I keep putting in more and more effort until I get good at it. And for the most part, it works well. There's still some things I haven't mastered, like I can't sing or dance, but that's beside the point. Getting back to you guys out there, if you find yourself trying to do something new and you find that you suck at it and you constantly compare where you are or your skills or your work to somebody else's, and then you use that kind of as a benchmark to determine whether or not you're gonna be good at it, you shouldn't do that. Stop, don't do that. And I'll relate this to welding just for the time being. I've taught a bunch of people how to weld, especially TIG weld, and when they sit down with me and see how easy I can make everything look, I found that sometimes it discourages people. That's also one of the reasons why I don't make perfect videos for welding, because, well, yeah, I could sit down and do everything perfect, but what's there to learn with that? And not only that, I think it might discourage people because they see how easy I can make something look, yet it's deceptively hard when you try it. And my goal is not to discourage, but to encourage and get you guys building stuff. Well, back to what I was saying is that when you compare yourself to other people and you don't take the context of how long they've been doing what it is they do, how much experience they have in it, what formal or informal training or education they have in it, is that really fair to yourself? And I know I'm guilty of it too, where I see someone that's insanely good at something and I want to be that good immediately. But you have to understand the time it takes to achieve something at a high level. And just to give you an example, because I know there are some artists that watch my YouTube channel. Locally, I'm probably more known as for the metal art I make, like what's in front of us, than I am as a YouTuber. Not many people know, even my friends don't know that I do a YouTube channel now. But I want to put things in perspective. So this piece of art in front of us, which is a tree of life that I threw together a number of years ago on a request from my stepmother, who unfortunately is no longer with us. I made this for her, and it took me to draw it out and weld it somewhere, I'll say around 10 hours. That's not that long considering what's there. It's a pretty simplistic, and I wasn't as good then as I am now, so I could probably do it to a lot higher standard faster now, but that's besides the point. That took me 10 hours or so. Keep in mind, I have thousands of hours, even at that point, of welding experience. And not only that, now I have even more thousands of hours of TIG welding experience. And if you want to make, say, metal art such as this, and you're 2 weeks in, you're simply not going to be able to make something like this. Now, I'm not saying this is world-class good. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that you have to be reasonable. It's okay if you want to get to a certain level to where, say, you can make stuff like that. That's awesome. That's a great goal. But rather than looking at, oh man, I'm nowhere near as good as someone else, look at where you are today, put in work, put in practice, put in effort, and then in a couple weeks, a month, 4 months, whatever have you, look back and compare where you are that day to where you were. It's very easy to get discouraged when all you do is compare yourself or your work to the best of the best. Okay, it's like a train wreck waiting to derail. That is why you have to look at where you were to where you are, because then you're going to look at the actual legitimate progress. And there's real danger in comparing your work to the best of the best. It's called burnout. You know, there was a time where I spent better part of 8 to 9 hours a day TIG welding, trying to become, you know, the hottest, best TIG welder and do tons of art and all of that. And I kind of got burnt out of it. And that's why I really haven't made a whole lot of art lately. It's very, very stressful for me. So you don't want to do that to yourself. And it doesn't have to be metal art, doesn't have to be welding. You could be a painter, you could be working on, you know, a car you have, whatever have you. Focus on your personal improvement. Don't worry about what other people are doing. Get inspired by other people, but don't use them as the benchmark to where you should be. The other thing that kind of coincides with that is you have to understand the time it actually takes for something. And this is probably the biggest thing, the lie that I never realized was a lie until I got older and started doing stuff on my own. You don't realize how much time it takes to do things. Like, people might show a high-end car they restored, and you're like, oh man, I want to do that, and you spend 500 hours and you're nowhere near where they are. And you're like, man, how on earth did they do this? When a quality job is done, nobody sits around and say, oh man, it took too long to make that. Like a car restoration, restoring an old farmhouse, artwork, whatever. Nobody looks at the Mona Lisa and says, man, they wasted too much time on that. No, nobody cares about that. When something is done and it's done to a high quality, a high level, people look at it in awe. They don't care about how long it took. That's not a concern. And that's why if you're trying to compete with some of the best people in the world at anything, you have to understand that they probably spent 20 times longer than what you did to get it to that point. And that was with a massive amount of experience behind that. So the experience allowed them to stop making foolish mistakes along the way, and it cuts the time down to get to a high level of quality. And I mentioned this in another video I had, but I mentioned that all an expert really is someone who can get to a high level of quality in the shortest amount of time possible. When you learn any new skill, be it welding, painting, artwork, working on cars, restoring buildings, walking, training dogs, doesn't matter. When you start developing a skill, it will take you a very long time to get an expert, because you have to find every way that doesn't work so that you don't waste time on those ways to get to the high quality end result. The great thing is, for all of you guys out there and girls learning new skills, is that you don't have to spend like forever in the novice ignorant state. If you do reading, talk with people, watch YouTube videos, you're watching this one, all sorts of things to absorb knowledge, you can skip over the novice and intermediate beginner stages and get like a couple levels under experts so much faster today than ever in history, because all the knowledge is there. You just have to want to absorb it and learn from it. But you can learn from the mistakes of others, not make those, and get to a high level of quality faster. Not to mention the quality that you can achieve regardless of your status. So how much, whether you're a novice or an expert, is actually very similar. It's just, it's going to take you time. And that's something a lot of people don't talk about, especially people that are experts in their field. Let's look at drywall. Drywall is a skill. You as a person at home, you can drywall a wall and it could be perfectly flat and look awesome. It might take you putting the walls up, mudding them in, ripping them down because they're not straight, rebuilding it. You might have to do that 3 times, but if you keep trying, eventually you will get it right. So you can achieve as a beginner a high level of precision, a high level of expert results. It's just not in the time frame. Now, back to what I was talking about being discouraged. There's a lot of people that I personally know, even where I work, there's a couple guys, and I'm not going to name their names because, I'm not about, making fun of anyone, but where they're mid-40s, maybe a little younger, maybe a little bit older, and they're so afraid of failing, or they're so afraid of like trying something new or putting an effort, dipping their toe in the water, that they just get discouraged and quit before they even start. And that's why I'm here today, to try and tell you guys and girls that put in a bunch of effort before you give up. Try it. If you want something, trust me, you're smart enough to get it, you're smart enough to achieve it. It's just, you have to figure out what you have to do to get there, and that takes effort, and it's gonna be scary. Anytime you try something new, it's gonna be scary. Like, I suck at dancing, and you know what? You're probably not gonna find me signing up for dance lessons because of how intimidating that is to me, which I'm not really afraid of anything, but that I'm afraid of. So I get that fear. It's just, you don't want that fear towards things that will prevent you from developing your skill set and your path in life to a better place. That fear can tank your whole life. It can tank your relationships, all of that. So you don't want that. It's just, you have to put in effort, do research, and try. Now, to kind of finish this up, I want to talk a little bit back, like I was mentioning the Mona Lisa, and I find this is kind of a great metaphor. So I don't know anything about painting pictures, honestly. I've finger painted stuff and that's the extent of it. Well, I decided as part of doing this video, everyone knows what the Mona Lisa is, so I thought I'd do some research on like how long it took to paint it, because I have no idea. I have no idea how big it is. So I looked it up and I found that the painting itself is 30-inch by 21. Now, I don't know if that's including the frame or just a raw painting, but that's not really that big, not at all. And apparently, it took, people argue, but at a minimum, they're saying 4 years and as much as 10 plus. Now, the 4 years is probably a more realistic, like on and off period from start to finish, but what I read is maybe it wasn't finished, whatever, it doesn't matter. Let's look at the lowest estimated time, 4 years. Now, I doubt that he spent 4 years straight just on that one painting. He likely had a lot of other stuff going on, but in the same token, you out there that's listening to me ramble on, have you ever spent 4 years, even on and off, on something? Ask yourself that. That is a lot of dedication, and that's what it takes to achieve awesome, great things. It's not an overnight thing. You have to have patience. Sure, a modern painter could make the Mona Lisa probably in a couple days and make it look pretty decent. Would it be as good? I don't know, probably not. But just, I'm putting things in perspective. When you start looking at anything, like a car restoration, a famous painting, restoration of a building, someone who built a business from nothing all the way up to multi-million a year. It took someone who was persistent, not easily discouraged, and even if they were discouraged, they woke up the next morning and still tried, and it took persistence, perseverance. Those are the things you need to concern yourself on and focus on, and you will achieve or get what you want in life. If you quit before you even start, you'll never get anywhere. And I'm not making fun of you if you feel like you're in that camp. This should serve as motivation that you don't have to be. Work on yourself and be realistic and focus on where you are today to even where you are tomorrow. If you can improve a small thing in a day, imagine what a small thing every day or even every week over a course of 5 or 10 years or 20 years might do for you. That's all it takes. Focus on what you can do today to make things better for tomorrow or next week or next month. It might be a very slow process, but it's worth it. Trust me on that. So get out there, put some effort in, and take care. Thanks.